Right, so before we move on, we first of all need to install two modules that can help us in making our own audio recorder in Python. So open your command line if you're using Windows and open your terminal if you're using Mac or Linux. So if you're using PyCharm, then you can actually open your terminal inside of it by clicking on this option which says terminal, and right in here, you're going to open your terminal inside of PyCharm. Now in here, you can just install any module you want. But in our case, for our application, we need to install two modules here. The first one is the PyAudio module. Now, in order to install the PyAudio module, just simply type pip install and then the name of this module, which is the PyAudio module, and now hit the enter button so that it can actually start installing that module on your computer. But I'm not going to hit the enter button because I already have installed the PyAudio module on my computer. But in your case, just hit the enter button so that it can actually start installing that module on your computer. Okay, so it may take like a minute or two depending upon your internet connection, and make sure that you have your internet connection because they do require your internet connection. Okay, so once it is installed, another module that you need to install is the Wave module. So again, just simply type pip install and then the name of the module, which is Wave. And again, hit the enter button and it will start installing that module on your computer as well. Again, I already have installed this module, so I'm not going to hit the enter button, but you guys hit the enter button so that it can actually start installing that module on your computer as well. And again, just make sure that you have your internet connection because it do require your internet connection to download this module, Wave, and then the other one that we have installed, which is the PyAudio module. Okay, so once these two modules are installed on your computer, you are now up and ready to make this application, which is the audio recorder application in Python. So let's do it. So first of all, I will just import Kiwi. Next, I'm going to import from KiwiMD. So from KiwiMD dot app, I'm going to actually import. So from KiwiMD dot app, I'm going to actually import this class, which is MD app. Next, I'm going to import the MD relative layout. So right in here, I'll just import it from KiwiMD as well. So from KiwiMD dot UIX dot relative layout, I'm gonna import this class MD relative layout because this is going to be the layout for my application. Okay, so next I'm gonna be importing the button class and this time from Kiwi. So from kiwi.uix.button, we're gonna import this class button. Okay, now we're gonna be using threading as well in this application. So let's just import the thread class from the threading module. So from threading, import the thread class. Okay, next we're going to import two modules that we have installed in the previous video. And the first one is the PyAudio module. The next one is the Wave module. Okay, so now let's just create a class. And now inside of that class, I will write down my entire application. So I will just name this class as recorder, audio recorder app, but you can just name it anything you want. Now to this class, we're gonna actually pass this thing that we have imported previously, which is MD app. And now inside of that class, my first method is going to be my build method. So now inside of this build method, I will create a window or layout. So right in here, I'll just say that layout is just going to be equal to MD relative layout that we have previously imported because this is going to be the layout for my application. So yeah, and now this function will actually return this layout. Okay, so now uh, we're going to actually call this function or this method build that we have inside of this class on the recorder. So right in here, first of all, I will create my main method and I will just say that if name is just equal to my main method. So main, what we're going to do is that we actually want to call this function build that we have inside of this class audio recorder app. So I will actually copy its name right in here and in here. And now in order to call this build method, we actually need to call this run method. And this run method will actually call this build method. So this one is actually built into Python, and this run method is instructed to call this build method. And this build method is actually returning our layout. Okay, so now just execute my application. You can actually see my window with this layout. So now let's just execute this application and you will just see that we have this window with some default width and height. And then you can see that we have a default background color as well. So now what we're going to do is that first of all, we will just change the height and width of this application. So we actually need to do it using the window. So first of all, we actually need to import it. So right in here, I will just say that from kiwi.core dot window, we're going to import a window. And now with this window, we can actually resize our application. So window dot size is just going to be equal to a tuple, and now inside of this tuple we can just pass anything for the width and height. So let's just say that the width will be equal to 350 pixels and then the height is going to be 300 pixels, because we will only be having two buttons inside of this window. So I think this size is actually perfect. So let's just execute it once again, and now you can just see that we have this window, and the height and width is now changed to 350 pixels in width and then 300 pixels in height. Okay, so now another thing that I want to do is that I will actually change the background color of this window as well. So right in here, let me just minimize the screen. And now right in here, what I will do is that I will just change the background color. So for this, I'm going to be actually using this attribute, which is md underscore bg underscore color, which is actually equal to a list. And now inside of this list, I can actually pass the RGB value of any color. Now, if you just want the RGB value of any color, just simply Google the RGB value of that color. So say that you just want the RGB value of, let's say, golden color. Then what you can just simply do is that just open your browser and just simply search what is the RGB value of golden color. So it can actually tell you the RGB value of golden color. But what I will do is that I want light pink background for my application. So the RGB value of light pink is 248 and then 200, 200 and then 220. And now this thing is actually expecting a value which is in between 0 to 1, and the RGB value is from actually 0 to 255. So the maximum value of RGB is 255. So I actually need to divide it by 255 so that the value lies in the range 0 to 1. So 255 and then 255. Okay, so now this RGB value will give light pink color to my layout. So let's just execute, and you will just see this light pink background for my application. All right, now we're going to be adding two buttons on our layout. The first one is going to be the record button, and then the second one is going to be the stop recording button. So let's do it. So right in here, the first button I'm going to create is the record button. So I'll just say that I will just name this button as record underscore button. You can just name it anything you want and put it equal to that class that we have imported from Kiwi, which is the button class. Okay, now the first thing we will just pass is the what text we want to have on this button. So the text on it is going to be record. Okay, so record. Next, we're gonna tell where we want to put it on our screen. So position hint is going to be equal to a dictionary, and we want it to appear at the center of the screen. So it will be 0.5 along x-axis, and for center y. So center y, it is going to be, so along y-axis it will be 0.70. Okay, so that's our second attribute. And now for the third one, we're going to actually define the size of it. So it will be this attribute size hint is going to be equal to a tuple, and in here it will be 0.4 0.4 and then zero point 0.1. Okay, so that's the size hint. Next, we're gonna basically name the font for our button. So the text should appear in this font, which is the comic font. But again, you can just name your font anything you want. Basically, you can use any font name of your choice. There are like thousands of fonts names available. You can just simply Google all the font names and just and then you can actually use any font name of your choice. So that's my font name. Next, I will just say that the text on it should appear bold. So I'll just say that bold is equal to true. Next, I will just say that the font size is going to be equal to 30 pixels. Next, what is going to be the background color of this button? So just say that background. So it is background underscore color, it's just going to be equal to again an RGB value. So I just want a red background for this button. So the RGB value is 1 for red and then 0 for green and then 0 for blue. Okay, so that's the background color. And what's going to happen when this button gets pressed? So you can actually just bind this event like this, or what you can do is that you can just simply say that record button dot bind an event to it. And what is going to be that event? So that event is actually whenever someone actually pressed on that button. So right in here, we just use this event, which is the on press event. And when this button gets pressed, it's going to actually call a function, and that function will actually take the job of recording the audio. So right in here, we will just name this function as start recording, but just remember that we haven't created this function yet. Well, we're going to create it now, but we're going to work on it later on. So let's just create this function right here. So def and then the name of this function, which is what I'm going to do is that I'm going to actually copy it. So right in here, I'm going to actually copy its name and I'm going to paste it right in here. And now, since this function at the moment will do nothing, so I'll just use this keyword pass, which means that this function contains nothing. So at the moment it's doing nothing, but what we're going to do is that the start recording will actually start a thread, and that thread will actually start the recording, will start the audio recording. Now we want to use thread because I want to basically that recording part should actually be a separate process which will actually run in parallel to my main application. So if you don't know threading, then threading is actually starting a new process in parallel to my main process. So say that this entire code is my main application, my main process, and when I actually start a thread inside of this main process, then what it actually do is that it actually create a small process inside of my main process, and then that main process actually run in parallel with my that small process actually run in parallel with my main process. So this is what this function will do is that it will actually create a thread, and that thread will actually target a function. So basically thread will actually create a small process, and that small process will actually take the job of recording the audio. So this is what this function will do, but at the moment it is actually doing nothing. But now let's just create another button, and that is actually the stop record button. So right in here, what I'm going to do is that I will just say that self dot, I will just name this button as stop button. You can just name it as stop recording button or whatever you want. So stop button is equal to button, and the text on it is going to be, the text on it is going to be equal to stop recording. So stop recording. Next, we can actually set the position of it. So where we want it on my layout. So it is going to be on center X, it will be decentered. So it will be 0.5, and then for center Y. So for center underscore Y, it will be 0.25. I think that's going to be the right position along y-axis. Okay, next, that's the position, and next let's just define its size. So size is going to be a tuple, and it will be zero point 0.7, zero point 0.7, and then zero point 0.1. Okay, so that's the size. And next, what is going to be font name? So font underscore name is just going to be equal to comic, just like the previous button. And that's the font name. Next, we can actually make it bold. So the text on that button will be bold. So that's where we are setting the bold equal to true. Next, we're going to define the font size. So font size is just going to be equal to 24 pixels. Next, we can actually set the background color. So background underscore color, it's just going to be equal to, so in here we're actually giving it a red color, and so if you want you can just give it a blue color or any color you want, any RGB value, but say that it's want to give it a green color. So 0 for red, R, and then 1 for green, and then 0 for blue. Okay, now what we're going to do is that we're going to actually disable this button because the user will not be able to click on it if basically the recording is not started. So this button will be active when we execute the application, and this button will not be active but when we actually click on the record button, then it will actually start recording the audio, and then we will actually activate the stop button so that the user will have the option to stop the recording as well. So once it is recording, we can actually disable that button because the user cannot start a new recording while while the previous one is still recording. So that is why in here by default we're gonna set the stop button to disable. So right in here we just use this attribute which is the disabled attribute. So disabled which is going to be equal to true. Okay, so now we have both of these buttons. Now all we need to do is to actually add it to a layout. So right in here we'll say that layout dot add widget. The first one is the record button, and then the next one is my stop button. So self dot stop button. Okay, so yeah, that's all we need to be doing for this video. And now let's just execute this application and you should be able to see both of these buttons. Okay, so we have the record button, and then in here we have the stop button. So actually the size of it is not really well. So right in here say that we will have another attribute size, and it will be 75 by 75, and we're just going to do it for this button as well. So just copy, and let's just do it right here as well. So in here, and then this thing. Okay, so now just execute this application. I think both of them should be looking okay. It's not. Okay, so let's just remove this attribute and then this attribute as well. And now let's just say that, well, we actually want to increase the height. So right in here, we just set the height to 0.2 and then 0.2, and let's just see if it is now fine or not. I think it's now pretty much fine, but what else I can do is that I can actually increase it to 0.3 and then zero point 0.3. So zero point 0.3, and now they just execute this application, and I think now it's looking now pretty much okay. And now you can just see that the stop recording is inactive. I actually cannot click on it. You can see I'm actually clicking on it, but nothing is happening. But when I actually click on the record button, you can see that it's actually active. You should actually see that view of being an active button. So this is actually active, but it will actually not do anything because we haven't instructed this button. Actually, the function that is bind to it, we have instructed it to do nothing. But now we have these two buttons. But now what we're going to do is that we're going to actually bind an event towards stop button as well. So when the stop button gets clicked, and obviously it will be clicked when it is actually not disabled. So in here it is disabled, but it will not be disabled when actually it is recording, when my application is actually recording my audio by clicking on that record button. So when the record button is being clicked, this button will get active, and then we can actually stop the recording by pressing on this stop button, and we can actually create a function for that, and that function will actually take the job of stopping the recording. So I'll just say that stop dot bind, and again we just want to bind the press event to it, and when this button gets pressed, it can actually call a function that we haven't created yet, but we're just going to name this function as stop recording. Stop recording. Okay, so now let's just create this function, but actually this function will do nothing. So right in here, I'll just say that def, and then this function self, and again, this function will do nothing as well. Okay, so now let's just execute this function, execute this entire application. And now in here, you're going to see that everything is looking same. But now in the next video, what we're going to do is that we're going to actually start working on this function, the start recording function. This function start recording, and this function will be called whenever this record button gets pressed. So when it's actually pressed, so you can just see that it's actually calling this function start recording. And now what this function will do is that it will actually create a thread, and that thread will actually target a function, and that function will actually take the job of recording the audio. So let's just start working inside of this function by getting rid of this pass keyword. And first of all, in here we're going to create a thread. So I'll just say that thread for recording the audio. So right in here, we're just going to create the thread, and I will just name this thread as recording underscore thread. You can just name it anything you want, and let's just create it with this keyword self. So self dot recording thread is just going to be equal to this class thread that we have previously imported from the threading module. So in here, you can just see that we have imported the thread class from the threading module. And now in here, what this recording thread will do is that it will actually target a function, and we will just name this function as record audio. You can just name it anything you want. Now remember that we haven't created this function yet, but we're going to create it in a minute. So in here, it will actually create the thread, but in order to basically activate this thread, we actually need to call the start function, which is actually inside the thread class. So self dot recording thread dot start. And when we actually start a thread, what it do is that it actually create a new process inside of my main process. And in here, in this case, that small process will be actually this function record audio. Okay, so now let's just start working inside of this function record audio by first of all creating it. So right in here, I'll just say that yeah, and then dealing with this function, and then this thing, and then here we need to pass that event as well, which will be received right here. Okay, now first of all, inside of this function, I actually need to define some of my recording parameters. In here, I will just add this comment and just say that set recording parameter. Okay. So first of all, what I'm going to do is that I will first of all create the pi audio object. So right in here, I'll just say that audio is just going to be equal to this variable pi audio, and then this class pi audio that we have previously imported from pi audio. So in here, we have imported pi audio, and now in here, we're actually calling this class pi audio from this module pi audio. Okay, so now right in here, what it will do is that it will actually create this audio object, and now basically you can access all the functions and attributes that we have inside of this class pi audio. And this pi audio contains all the necessary functions and attributes that we're gonna actually need for recording the audio. Okay, so first of all, what I'm gonna do is that I first of all need to open the stream for recording. So right in here, I will just add another command and I'll just say that open stream for recording. Okay, so now right in here, what I will do is that I will just say that this variable stream, which is going to be equal to this object audio. And now in here with that object, I can access this method, which is actually inside of this class pi audio. And now in here, I actually need to define some of the very important parameters for recording. And the first one is what is actually going to be the format of my audio. So let's say the format is just going to be equal to, so right in here, I will actually create a variable. So in here, yep, right in here, I will just create this variable, and I will just name this variable as format. And now the format is going to be pi audio dot PA in 16. Okay, now what actually it is? Now sound is actually stored in binary, and you know that everything related to computer is actually in binary. Now, in order to know where an integer starts and end, there are different methods. There are different kinds of methods. Now, different kinds of methods used fix a size of bits. Now, what this actually PA in 16 is, it is basically a signed 16-bit binary string. 15 bits are for the number and 1 for the sign, leaving your range in between. So the range is in between minus 32,000. 768 to plus uh, 32,767. Okay, so this negative sign is for 1 byte. It actually represents 1 byte, while this remaining actually represent 15 bits. So if you just actually convert this number into binary, then it will actually take 15 bits, while this sign will actually take 1 bit. So in total, it is actually 16 bit. So that is actually going to be my format. And now what I will do is that I will just say that format is just going to be equal to this variable format, which is actually this format right here. Okay, now the next variable I actually need to set is basically my channels. And now we can actually use different types of channels. Like we can just set the mono audio or the stereo audio or some other type of audio that are not commonly used. So what I'm going to do is that I'll just create this variable channels, and I'm going to set its value equal to 1, and 1 actually represent the mono audio. Now in here, if you set the value equal to 2, now this would represent stereo audio. Now, these two represent two channels of audio. The left and right channels are recorded or playback separately. So stereo audio can create a more immersive listening experience than mono audio. What I'm going to do is that I will actually set the variable, this variable equal to 1 because I want mono audio. So right in here, I will just say that channel is just going to be equal to channels. Okay, so now the next variable that we want to set is basically the rate. So just rate, and in here, let's just set the rate. So let's create this variable rate, and now the rate is going to be 44,100. Okay, now what actually it is actually the sampling rate of the audio stream in hertz. In this case, it is double for 100 hertz, which is actually the standard CD quality sampling rate. Okay, now the next thing is basically so in here, I'll just say that rate is going to be equal to rate. And next, I'm going to say that what is going to be the frames per buffer. So right in here, let's say the frames per buffer. And now let's just create this variable here as well. And let's just call this as chunk. And this is going to be equal to 1024. Okay, now what actually it is? Now, actually frame per buffer, which is actually this attribute. Frame per buffer is actually the number of audio frames per buffer. In this case, it is 1024, which is a common buffer size for audio recording. So now we'll just say that frame per buffer is just going to be equal to this variable chunk. Okay, so I think these are all the important parameters, and I think we are actually missing one, and that is basically the input. And input is equal to true because we want to give some input for recording, because it is actually waiting for our input so that we can actually record that thing that we want to record. So we're actually setting this value equal to true, which means that, okay, just accept whatever I'm actually recording to you, or whatever input I'm just giving to you for recording. Okay, so that's my stream. And now, since now we have opened it, and now what I'm going to do is that in here, first of all, let me say this command by first of all scrolling it down to make sure everything is visible. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I will just say that we are actually creating wave file saving for saving the recording, Okay, so now right in here, I will just say that WF is just going to be equal to wave. Okay, so wave dot open. Okay, so this is actually the module that we have previously installed. And now in here, we can actually name our recording file. Now you can just name it anything you want, but say that I'll just name it as recording dot wave. Okay, and now in here, since we want to write something into this file, so it will be write, and then since it is actually expecting the basically it will actually write the audio in binary, so we actually need to type here B. So this basically means write in binary. Okay, so now what we're going to do is that we can actually set the channel of it to it as well. So channel is just going to be equal to channels because we want mono audio. Next, what we want to do is that we'll just set the sample size. So set sample width, and so this is just going to be equal to audio dot get sample size, and the sample size is just going to be my format because this is what I want my format. And next is basically the frame rate. So w dot it is actually set uh, where it is. Okay, so it is set frame rate, and now my frame rate is just going to be this variable rate that we have previously set right here. Okay, so that's my frame rate, and now right in here, what we're going to do is that I will actually start the recording. So just add this command, start the recording. Okay. So now right in here, I will just say that first of all, once it is actually starting the recording, then I will actually change the text on my record button to recording. So I'll just say that self dot recording button dot text is just going to be equal to uh, recording and then dots. Okay, that's the text. And next, I actually want to we'll actually create a variable, and I will just say that self dot recording active. And once it is actually recording, then this variable will always be true. Will always be true. And now, right in here, I will just say that while this variable recording active, while this variable, as long as it is actually true, then what you want to do is that you actually need to actually read the chunk that the user is actually giving you as an input. So right in here, I'll just say that data is just going to be equal to is actually equal to stream, not self. So stream dot read, and you want to actually read all these chunks that the user is actually giving you. So when we are actually recording, then it is actually reading that recording and then storing that recording in this variable data. And then we actually need to write it, write that data. So it is actually wf dot write frames and then this variable data. Okay, so this actually means, so we are actually using this loop, this while loop, and this actually means that as long as this variable is actually active, means that once it is actually in the recording stage, then keep on accepting the recording and then keep on actually reading it and then keep on actually writing it using this variable wf that we have actually opened right here. So what it will do is that it will actually create that file and then we'll actually store all the data in this file recording.wav. Okay, but once we want to stop the recording, then in here we'll just do say that stop recording. Then what we want to do is that first of all we just change. So first of all, let me just scroll it down to make sure everything is visible. So self dot record button dot text is just going to be equal to record once again. So previously it was recording once it was actually recording the screen, or sorry, recording the audio, and but now we're going to change it to record. Okay, next we're going to actually stop the stream as well. So let's say that stream dot stop stream, and next we actually want to close the stream as well. So stream dot I think what is it? Yeah, it is actually the close function. So close. Next, we actually want to terminate our audio. So audio dot terminate. So audio dot terminate. Next, we actually want to close that file as well. So wf dot close. Okay. So now right in here, I will just add this command. Not this command, but I will just print it out on the screen to make sure that our recording is completed. So recording completed. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so basically this variable, we are setting this value variable equal to recording active equal to true once we're actually recording the audio, and as long as this variable is true, it will keep on recording. But once the recording is stopped, and now how the recording is going to be stopped? Well, the recording is going to be stopped once the user actually click on the stop recording button. So we haven't, so when the stop recording button gets clicked, it's just gonna call this function. What is that function? It can actually call this function stop recording. And what the stop recording function will do is that it will actually basically set this variable equal to false. So when this variable gets false, then what it will do is that it will actually stop the stream, close the stream, terminate the audio, and then actually closes the file and then actually save the file in our project location or whatever location we have specified right here. Okay, now the next video is going to be pretty small. We're gonna actually start working on this function stop recording. Function will be called whenever the stop recording button gets pressed. So when it's actually pressed, we're actually calling this function or referencing this function stop recording. So let's just start working inside of this function. So first of all, what the stop recording function will do is that first of all, it will actually basically it will actually set this variable equal to false, because when it is actually true, it is actually recording the audio, but when it gets false, then we actually want, then what it will do is that it will actually stop the stream, close the stream, terminate the audio, and then close the file. Okay, so now right in here, first of all, we'll just say that self and then this variable recording active equal to false. Okay, next, what we're going to do is that we're going to actually need to stop the recording thread as well, because it is actually running in a separate process. You can see that we have this recording thread, which is actually running as a small process separately, but in parallel to our main process. Now we actually need to stop that thread, because that thread is actually responsible for recording the audio. Now, since we want to stop it, so we actually need to stop this thread. So right in here, I will just add this command and just say that stop recording thread. And first of all, I actually need to join this thread. And once I actually join the thread, then I can actually stop it. So first of all, let's just join this thread, and I'll just say that self dot recording thread, and we can actually join it using this function join. Okay, so now it is joined. Now we can actually disable it. So let's say that self dot recording thread is just going to be equal to now none. And when it just gets none, means that this recording thread will now no more do, will do actually nothing. Okay, so now once the stop recording button gets stopped, now what we want to do is that we actually want to enable the stop button, and we actually want to we actually want to disable the stop button, and we actually want to enable the record button. So right in here, I will just say that disable the stop button, and what I will do is that I will just say that self dot record button dot disabled will now just gonna be equal to false, and while the stop recording button dot disabled will now be equal to true. Okay, yeah, and that's all we need to be doing in this function stop recording. And now with it, our application is now 100% ready, and now we can actually execute it. So let's just execute it, execute, and now in here you can see that we have two buttons, record button and then the stop recording button. At this moment, this is actually activated while the stop recording button is actually disabled. Now when I actually click on it, click on this button, record, then what it will do is that it will actually start the recording. So let's just click on it, and we're actually getting this, okay, stop recording, dot record audio, missing one required arguments, event. Okay, so record audio. Okay, so there is something wrong right here in the record audio function, where it is. Record audio function is, yep, record audio. Okay, so it is just saying that record audio dot record audio missing one required positional argument event. Okay, so right in here, what is the thread? Okay, so that's the thread, and it has been started. And what is wrong in that? Okay, so let's just get rid of this event right here, and let's just execute it. And now you just click on the recording, and now you can just see that it's actually recording, and the text on it is actually changed to recording. And now we can actually, whatever I'm speaking right now is being recorded. And but the sad thing is, this button is actually not being activated. So let's just see what is wrong in here. Okay, so let's just close it, and now we actually have to close it like this. And when the record audio is actually being clicked, then the recording button gets active, and right in here, um, once in here it is actually being recording, stop recording. It's actually in the recording function, I think, when this thread is being created right here. Okay, so once it is actually starting the recording, then what we actually need to do is that we actually need to enable the stop recording button, so that the user can have the option to stop the recording. So right in here, what I will do is that I'll just say that right in here, I'll just say self dot stop record button. So stop button dot disabled is now just going to be equal to false, while self dot record button is this gonna be equal to, so disabled, is this gonna be equal to true? Okay, so now this should actually work absolutely fine. And now I click on the record button, and now you're going to see that this button has now been deactivated, while this one is now been activated. Okay, so now whatever I'm actually speaking is being a recording, and now if you just want to stop the recording, then we can actually stop it like this. And in here, we're actually getting this error, stop recording takes 1 over 2 are given. Okay, so now let's just close this application. And for the stop recording function, since we have actually bind it to an event, so that event will actually be received right here. Okay, so now let's just execute it once again by first of all, let's just see if that file has been created or not. Okay, so now let's just delete this file. Oops. What is, oops, stop it. Okay, so right in here, we actually first of all need to delete that file. Where is that file? Okay, so let's just delete that file. And it's saying that it's actually opening another file. Oops. Okay, so first of all, we actually need to close this application. Let's just close it right from here. And now we can actually delete this. Okay, so delete it, and now it has been deleted. And now let's just execute this whole code once again, and hopefully this time it will work absolutely fine. So I've clicked on it, and as you can see that it is now actually recording. This button is now disabled while this one is actually activated. So now whatever I'm speaking is actually recording. And if you just want to stop the recording, then you can see that this button is now active. We now have the option to stop the recording. Okay, so this is being recorded, and I've been teaching this application, and now let's just stop the recording. Stop recording, and now you're going to see that this button is now activated while this one has been deactivated. Okay, so now in here, you're going to see it actually has created this file that we just named as recording, and an extension of it is wave file. So now like I just open that file, and in here, I don't know if you're just listening to it or not, because I have my microphone turned on, so you might not be able to listen it, but in your computer you should be able to listen to it. But you can now see that it has successfully created that file recording.wav, and yeah, we are now pretty much done with this application. And the reason we were previously getting this error is that right in here we actually do not need to pass that event right here, because the event is actually bind with this function. So in here, you can just see that with this button, record button, the event is actually bind, which is the on press event, and this event is need to be passed to this function start recording. In here, start recording that we have passed right here, and not here, because this function is actually not bind to an event, while this function is actually bind to an event, and it will be executed whenever the user click on the or press the start recording button. So that is why there is actually no need to pass the event right here. So that is why once we actually removed it, our error was now gone. Okay, another error that we got was that in here, once it actually starts the recording, then we actually need to, it is actually not an error, but we actually need to enable the stop button that was previously disabled. So previously, once the application was executed for the first time, you can see that in here, the stop button was actually disabled. But now in here, we actually activated it so that the user can have the option to stop the recording once it is actually recording the audio. So in here we actually have activated the stop button by setting its disabled value equal to false. And then here, once it is actually recording, then we are actually setting the disabled equal to true, and that's because once it is actually recording, we cannot record another audio while the previous one is already in place. Now in this video, I'm going to explain this entire code. So first of all, we've imported each and everything, and then two important things are actually this module PyAudio and this module Wave. So we have installed it, and then we actually imported it, and then right in here, from our main function, our program actually start executing, which is down here, we actually name first of all our class as audio recorder app, and then we're actually calling the build method using the run method, and this run method will actually execute this build method. And now in here, we're actually creating our layout, and then we're actually creating these two buttons, the record button and the stop recording button. And when the record button gets clicked, it's actually creating a thread, and that thread, let's just go to this function, start recording. So here we have the start recording, and it's actually creating a thread. And so this function will actually create the thread, and the thread will actually target a function record audio, and that record audio function will actually take the job of recording the audio. So once it actually started that thread, then we actually need to activate our stop button and then disable our record button so that the user can have the option to stop the recording once it is actually recording the audio. So let's just go to this function record audio that this thread is targeting by creating a small new process inside of our main process. So right in here, first of all, we created the audio object, and then we just have some format, and then we want the mono audio, and then we want this rate, which is our frame per buffer, and then we have chunk size, and then in here we just open that audio and then set all these important parameters, and then in here we're actually creating that file, and then we want to write into that file in binary form so that so that the computer can actually process it, because the computer only understand binary language. It does not understand the human readable language. Okay, so next we're just setting the mono channel, and next we're just setting this format, and then in here we're just setting the frame rate equal to rate, which is actually this rate. Oops, not this rate. Yeah, this rate. Okay, next in here we're actually starting the recording, and then we're setting the text of recording button to recording, and then we're actually creating this variable and setting this value equal to true. And as long as this variable is actually true, while this variable is true, then keep on actually reading the input that the user is giving you in the form of recording, and then keep on storing in this variable data, and then keep on writing that data basically in that file. Okay, and now in here, when the stop recording button gets clicked, then what it's actually doing is that it is actually setting this variable equal to false. And now when this variable gets false, then the program control will come outside of this program. And now in here, we're actually setting the record button text to record, and we're stopping the stream, closing the stream, terminating, and then closing it. Okay, so let's just go to the stop recording button, and this will be called once the stop recording button gets clicked. So in here we have created it right here. So first of all, it is actually setting this variable equal to false so that it can actually come out of that loop and then just terminate our recording. And then in here we actually need to stop that recording thread as well. So first of all, we join that thread so that we can actually stop it. And then in here, we just stop it by setting this recording thread equal to none. Means that this recording thread will actually do nothing now. Okay, next, finally, what we did is that once the recording has been stopped, we actually activated the record button, and then we actually deactivated the stop button. And the reason we did that is that so that the user can have the option to start the new recording when the previous one is actually stopped. So when the previous one is already in place, then the record button was actually deactivated, because the user cannot start the new recording once when there is already a recording in place. So but when the stop recording button gets clicked and the recording has been completed, now the user will have the option to record the new audio. So that is why we actually activated the record button by setting the disabled value equal to false. Means that the button will not be disabled anymore, while the stop button will be disabled. So that is why we are just setting the disabled value equal to true. Okay, so that was our application. So still, if you have any problem understanding anything, then you can actually contact me through email. You can just directly message me. You can ask your question in the question answer section, and I will try my best to get back to you as soon as possible.